To me, being human means being open to and creating and caring for relationships with other people. And whether you're the kind to have lots of connections with lots of people or just a deep connection with a few people, we're here to make each other feel safer and loved and cared for. And so maintaining those connections, I think, is the most important part of what it means to be a human. Welcome to the On Being Human podcast, where we believe transforming ourselves can positively transform society. Your host, Brandi Fleck, has the honor of exploring the human condition with real people who bravely share their personal stories of adversity, healing, joy, and more. If you're seeking empowerment, strength, and inspiration, listen in to engage and explore tough topics that help us humanize one another, understand ourselves better, spread love, and connect.
Welcome back to another soul-exposing exploration of what it means to be human. You're listening to episode 33. Last week, we talked to James Huey, a professional nerd and podcaster who opened up about his happy polyamorous relationship. This week's episode is truly personal. Ryan Sauls and I open up about our happy monogamous relationship. Listeners, including but not limited to guests from episode 12 and 26, submitted relationship questions on Facebook, and we spend the next 45 minutes or so answering them all. I'm Brandi Fleck, your host. If you guys have been following the On Being Human podcast from inception, you probably know enough about me by now. If not, definitely go back to episodes 1 and 19, which can be found at onbeinghumanpodcast.com/episodes, or check out onbeinghumanpodcast.com/about. If you follow the show on social media, you also probably know who Ryan is. But today, I'm extremely honored to have the pleasure to introduce you by voice to Ryan. We've been together for over a year, have blended our families, and enjoy navigating the world together and with our children. By day, Ryan is a software engineering manager. In his spare time, he is an extremely talented musician, and in fact, he wrote the music for the intro and outro of this podcast. He is the voice of the intro and helps edit and mix episodes with me behind the scenes. We believe that sharing our experiences helps others, and we enjoy when others share their experiences with us as well. Our humanity manifests itself in so many different ways, and relationships are one area that are fun to explore. So stay tuned to hear us open up about what works for us and even what doesn't and how we work through it. To support our efforts, you can now go to onbeinghumanpodcast.com/shop and click the Amazon banner there to do your regular shopping. At no additional charge to you, a portion of all your purchases made through that click will go directly to the production of this podcast. How easy is that? Same Amazon, same experience, same shopping you'd do anyways. Best of all, same prices, but you're supporting the On Being Human podcast. Again, shop Amazon at no additional cost to you at onbeinghumanpodcast.com/shop. As always, subscribe on iTunes and Apple Podcasts, leave a rating, leave a review, and you can find the show's presence on Facebook and Pinterest for now. Without further ado, let's dive in. All right, Ryan, our first question is from listener Jason O'Donnell, and this is actually a multi-part question. He says, I'd love to hear your origin story, how you met, fell in love, and grew your relationship, where your compatibilities are, but also where you have found you are incompatible and worked through those issues to build an even better and deeper connection. So let's sort of...
That's a lot of parts.
Let's sort of address these questions one at a time. So let's start with our origin story.
Origin story makes it sound like we're superheroes. But, right. I had been working at the company that we both work at for about a year and had made friends with a woman that is a mutual friend of ours. And she started telling me one day about how she was going to bring a friend of hers to work with us in our office, and it's a software office. So, of course, if there's a woman coming around, everyone is at least interested.
There aren't very many women.
There are not very many women in software, even still. But, so, yeah, Shannon introduced us the same way she introduced everybody else at the office. Hi, this is Ryan, this is Brandi. And as unromantic as it sounds, that's actually the way that we met, so no way around that. But I could tell right away that Brandi was pretty and obviously very capable at work. She did very intelligent and sort of always sort of in command. And things kind of sat that way for a few years. I was married. Brandi was married when she started working, and over time, both of those relationships sort of ended. And kind of fast forward several years, 4 years, we worked together before.
Here we are.
Here we are.
So this is really funny. And just so you guys know, I have never heard Ryan answer these questions before, so I'm hearing this for the first time, as are you, and he's probably going to hear some of what I have to say for the first time. Some of it. I have told him some of it, but I have a different origin story. That is how we met at work.
Right.
But actually, the first time that I remember meeting Ryan was at Shannon's wedding before I started working at the office.
That was before you started working?
That was.
It was, that's right.
Yep. That's a funny story. So she had a very intimate wedding with only maybe 30 or 40 people, her closest family and friends, and the people who could come, and it was at one of her really good friends' houses. And she was very concerned about her guests being comfortable and being hospitable to them. So she tried to get somebody to shuttle people from the house to a hotel where a lot of people were staying from out of town. And Ryan volunteered to do that job. So me and my late ex-husband at the time, who we were married, we were there at the wedding, and we rode over to the hotel in the last shuttle with Shannon and Adam right after they were married. And I said hi to Ryan, and we were laughing and cutting up in the back, and he drove us over, and we said bye, and that was it.
I had totally forgotten about that.
And then I didn't see him again until, my first day at work. And it was exactly like he said. How we started dating now.
Yeah, that is a whole different story.
Yeah. So fast forward about 4 years, and there was some time in between my marriage and when Ryan and I went on our first date. I had a different boyfriend in between for a little while, and so we had broken up, and I was going about my business, starting the podcast. Ryan and I were friends. We had hung out over the years, and I had asked him to help with music for the podcast. So we had been talking a little bit about that. And I always went to his gigs, and he plays with Shannon in a band called Carter's Creek South. If you guys want to go check it out.
Shameless plug.
Yep. But so I had always gone to their gigs, and then so it made sense that I would ask him to do some of the guitar. And then one day I was just like, you know what? I want to go out on a date. So I messaged him on Facebook. It took probably like 2 hours to craft and send this little message that just said, hey, do you want to go out for drinks?
That's funny.
And then I panicked and waited.
Oh. Well, you didn't need to wait.
Well, I waited for you to respond.
You waited for me to respond. Oh, I see. Well, so I got that. It's funny. I actually got that text or that message on Facebook while Shannon and I were over at our mutual friend's house for a graduation party for their son. And we had been hanging out and playing music and stuff, and so yeah, I got that message. Obviously, was kind of excited and a little bit surprised right out of the gate. I don't think a woman had ever actually asked me out before, so there was that. But very exciting to say the least.
So long story short, he said yes, and we went out for drinks over Memorial Day weekend, and it just so happened, we both have kids, and it just so happened that our kids were with their other parents at the time. And so we went to a brewery, and we went out to eat after that, and we pretty much spent the whole day together.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. It was really fun. We talked a lot.
And it was, definitely one of those things where, we were out on a date, but we had sort of a relationship of understanding and of friendship before that, and it just made a lot of the stuff that might otherwise have been uncomfortable or, intimidating about a first date, made it a whole lot easier for me to manage. I don't know if it was like that for you, but
I think so, yeah, for sure. And I don't know, you seemed like you were nervous, though.
I didn't say, yeah. I was definitely still a little nervous, but you should see me on a regular first date.
Anyways, okay. Okay, so that covers our origin story and how we met. So the next one is, how did we fall in love?
We mentioned that, we were both, but I was married and had been divorced, and I came into our relationship, I think it's fair to say, with some insecurities, and was probably, I don't know, I think things probably were slower than they might have been just because of some of that. And so after that first date, we went out, again and again and again. Did other things. Had a lot of fun. A lot of time hanging out and talking.
We had a date where we made homemade sushi, you guys, and it was so cool.
It was fun. That was a lot of fun. We were spending lots of time together, and even if we weren't actually together, we were, swapping messages on the phone or staying in touch basically all the time. And like one day, it occurred to me that, I wasn't concerned about those things that had been making me insecure before. Like, it didn't matter anymore. And coming out of a divorced relationship, I definitely had an idea in my mind that I wanted to be really careful not to define what I was looking for in a partner in terms of, to negate whatever the qualities in my other relationship. I wanted to be positive and to find someone who met, everyone's got sort of a list of things, and I don't know, sometimes they're hard to express, but you feel like I wanted someone who was something, not somebody who wasn't something.
That makes sense.
And I just felt like over time that I was worrying less about the things about me that I thought would make me maybe not as suitable for our relationship, and start, I wasn't worrying anymore about avoiding a relationship like I was in. And I was really able to kind of start realizing that, Brandi met all of those sort of qualities, had all those qualities about her that made her exactly what I was looking for.
Aww.
Well, it's true. And so with time and spending all this time together, we were having so much fun, like all the time.
We still have fun all the time, by the way.
Yeah, and it's hard to know sometimes exactly the moment that you think you're in love with somebody, but
You just woke up one day?
Well, I realized that I was, and I looked. It's almost like I looked around, and everything had sort of kind of clicked into place in all these different parts of my life all at the same time, and it just sort of happened, and I realized, wow, I haven't been this happy in a long time, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep this together for as long as I can.
Well, so I asked Ryan out on our first date, but he definitely told me that he loved me first. And I had fallen in love with him too. And I was okay with taking things slow. And it was just sort of like an organic evolution of the relationship, I think. And a lot of what Ryan said about things just sort of falling into place and spending a lot of time together and having fun just sort of was all part of it. And I think I already had, because we had a friendship before, even though we didn't hang out all the time and talk all the time like we were doing when we started dating, there was already sort of a foundation of love there. You know, it wasn't romantic love, but it was like, I was very fond of Ryan anyways, and getting to know him even more in the ways that we were getting to know each other just sort of cemented how good of a person he is to me. And it cemented all of the things I already thought I knew, plus I learned so much more, and it was all very positive. And yeah, so it was just sort of a natural progression. And when he told me he loved me, I sort of, again, this theme of like freaking out and panic, I was like, what do I say? I was totally speechless because I didn't expect him to say it then. And it totally just blew me away. And I was like, well, I'm speechless. I love you too. But you know, that wasn't the moment. That was just the moment of expression.
Yeah.
So the next question, well, in this multi-part question, is how we grew our relationship. So we've been together for a little over a year now. And in this time, we have done a lot.
To say the least.
Yeah. So how we grew our relationship. So I'll take this one first. And I think that growing our relationship was just sort of also a natural, organic sort of evolution of the relationship as we went on, as we just did the things that we naturally wanted to do together. We grew closer and closer. And we already had sort of a foundation of trust from our friendship, but that trust got even stronger. You know, getting to know each other better just created more and more good feelings. There were no bad feelings. I mean, of course, there were when you're in a new relationship in the beginning, there are nerves. You wonder if you're making the right choices, if you're doing the right things. You know, sometimes we have insecurities as people, I think, at least I do. And those sort of went away, like Ryan was talking about earlier. And I think we just continued to grow by talking and doing things together that we liked to do. And if conflict did arise, and still to this day, if conflict arises, it's not explosive. It's not hard to deal with. I mean, conflict is really hard. It's hard for me. I hate it. I don't know a lot of people who like it. But in those situations, I found that I was able to grow closer to Ryan because he's very calm and very patient, and he seeks to understand where I'm coming from. And that makes me feel comfortable in talking about what we've got going on and the issue at hand. And I think that in those moments, I was able to feel closer to Ryan. Also, when we have intellectual conversations and get to know each other on a philosophical or intellectual level, that also helps me feel closer to Ryan. And I think we just have a lot of those moments where we have opportunities to get closer. And that's how I think our relationship has grown. And because of those things, we were comfortable taking our relationship to the next level. Now we live together, we've blended our families, and I feel like things are just going really smoothly and great.
Yeah. I mean, now that I think about it for a little bit, you talk about how we grew our relationship. I think the how there is just that spending time, a lot of time and focused time. We definitely do not have that mindset of the default activity being sitting down and watching TV. Our default activity is to sort of sit down and talk to each other.
That's true. Yeah.
And we still do watch TV and watch movies and that kind of stuff on occasion. That's what our family kind of likes to do together. But when it's just Brandi and I, normally we will focus on spending time together and actually talking and being present instead of sort of passively just watching something else or letting something else happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really big on quality time. That's what helps me feel loved, and we get a lot of it, I think, even though we're super busy all the time.
It's true.
All right, the next part of this question is where your compatibilities are, but also where you have found you were incompatible and worked through those issues to build an even better and deeper connection. So let's start with compatibilities and then incompatibilities and working through those issues. I guess we touched on that a little bit.
A little bit. So I mentioned, kind of trying to be active about choosing a partner or someone to spend time with. And so I had at least some idea of what I thought would mean compatibility to me, and someone who was thoughtful and expressive, and really someone who was just sort of generally positive was super important to me. I mean, it sounds maybe it sounds simplistic, but I think it's you just sort of know when you're around people if they have a positive sort of outlook. Definitely the fact that we are both comfortable, sort of being together and hanging out and not having to have that sort of third party, whether it's a TV or somebody else. We can hang out together and enjoy each other's company.
I think we enjoy each other's company because we have a lot of compatibilities. And not only do we like to do a lot of the same things, but we see life in a similar way.
Yeah.
I think. We both really like people, I think, and we like games, we like music, we like food, we love to cook together. We just do a lot of things together. And I think even like Ryan said, being comfortable in that togetherness is part of why we're compatible, because that's what I like in a relationship. I like doing things with my partner. I like actively being together, and Ryan definitely is okay with that. I've had partners that needed more space and needed more alone time, and both of us need space and alone time, but I think that our threshold for what we need is similar, and that helps.
Right. Yeah, I think that's probably a good way to express it. There are other people have all sorts of expectations about having sort of me time, and even in the context of a relationship, they still think, or they still want to have these buffers and time to go off and pursue their own thing individually. And it's not that we don't have those things.
We have a lot of those things.
But the whatever balance of individual and together works for each of us works for us together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one, I think.
I do too.
Okay, and so now let's jump into the incompatibilities and how we've worked through those and to build a better and deeper connection.
So we talked about this question a little bit out front anyway, and I said, and I think Brandi would agree, that the word incompatibility, or how we're incompatible, is probably maybe too strong a word for it, because it implies, like, I think, like a conflict, or sort of a.
I don't know if I just don't think we're incompatible. That might be weird to say, but.
So, right, that's what I'm getting at. Like, it's not incompatible exactly, but there are some differences.
Yeah, sure.
And one of those, I think, is we communicate differently. As you may have already picked up, even just listening to this interview, I'm a little more of a rambler. I go around the edges of a conversation quite a bit more, and Brandi's very direct.
I cut straight to the heart of it.
And there's a lot of implications there. I talk around a subject. I think through the options by talking about them, and in general, and just slower to communicate. And it takes some effort sometimes, especially if in the context of a disagreement or whatever. It takes some effort for me not to interpret Brandi's directness as aggression or hostility. It takes an extra little bit of effort to say, oh no, she's not saying it that way because she's mad at me. She's saying it that way because that's the way she says things. And it's just that right in this moment, maybe I don't exactly want to hear what it is that you're saying so directly.
Right.
And then going the other way, if we wake up in the morning and we're planning our day, I'll say 5 or 6 different things that we might possibly do, and by the time I get into the second one, Brandi's already started planning them out, because since I said them, that must be exactly what I'm going to do, because that's the only way that someone who is so direct could communicate.
That's right. If I say it, I want to do it. So we're working on that. We're definitely working on that. But again, being able to understand where the other person is coming from really helps. And so while there are differences, I think we both try to come from a place of understanding. And I know that I give Ryan the benefit of the doubt. If I perceive him as being indirect, I don't automatically think that there's some bad motivation, or that there's it's not passive aggressiveness. It's him thinking. And with my history of, abuse in my childhood and some of the traumatic things that have happened in my life, in the past, I've gone to that place of thinking, oh, this person might be out to get me, or this person doesn't have my best interest at heart, and there's some kind of negative underlying motivation, but that's mostly not true ever. So I've done a lot of work personally to rewrite that script and to know that, I know hands down that Ryan loves me, and there's no reason why he would want to hurt me. And that's been proven time and time again. And so it's not that people don't accidentally hurt each other, but there's no malice behind it. So it does take a little effort on my part to give the benefit of the doubt, but I come at my baseline now is, if he says something that I don't necessarily understand, or that I might take a little bit of offense to, my knee-jerk reaction is no longer, oh, this is bad. It's, hey, let's try to understand where he's coming from and give him the benefit of the doubt and move forward.
Yeah, and a lot of that has just come from talking about it. When we have a disagreement, we try to build on that trust and work our way through that sort of thing and get through resolve the immediate conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point later, we're probably going to circle back around and talk about the argument itself. I felt this way when I said this. Oh, well, I didn't know that that's what you meant or how you felt. And through those sorts of conversations, I came to understand the way that my indirectness might be perceived sometimes as working an agenda. That that had never occurred to me before. Well, we had talked about that. It came up separately and just talking about sort of the issues around a relationship, and we talked about the directness in Brandi's style and the way that I might misinterpret that. So I think that like being able to talk about the argument without having the argument again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And being actually getting an opportunity to learn, and just being comfortable enough with each other to have those sorts of conversations, I think has been sort of how we resolved or are resolving how we are resolving those things.
Yeah, I agree. It's been helpful. It's been a growing experience. It's been a learning experience, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Me either.
One other thing that I should bring up
Mm-hmm.
is that we have quite an age gap. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
And so this isn't necessarily an incompatibility, but this is an area where we have a 12-year age difference, and Ryan's older than me. And so I am a millennial. I am a zennial. I was born right when I still have an analog childhood, so I feel really lucky in that regard. But as a teenager, I got my first cell phone. The internet became really big, and these things impact the way I live life and the way I see life. And Ryan is a Gen Xer. So every now and then our humor doesn't line up. And every now and then we look at social media differently and how we share things differently. And I think that we've come to understand how the other approaches these types of things just through the same resolution methods that Ryan just mentioned before. But those are areas that we definitely have to talk about and that we do talk about.
That's true.
We're okay with the age difference. At least I am.
Well, yeah, that I mentioned the insecurities before, and that was actually the sort of the biggest one for me. How to get around that was definitely an issue that I had to navigate somehow.
What do you mean get around it?
To let it put itself aside, I guess, right? I mean, to realize that it wasn't as big a deal as I had let it turn into, and didn't need to be a barrier.
All right. Well, Jason, thank you so much for all the questions that have taken us this far in the episode. Those were great questions, and it was really fun to talk about that stuff. So now we're going to switch to Alyssa Fox. She said, "What do you admire most about each other, and what has the experience blending your families been like?"
Well, I would say what I admire most about Brandi is her openness and her positivity and just her generally positive attitude and just the can-do ethic, bringing this whole podcast to life and telling all these stories and making it all happen has just been a huge effort of will and determination on her part. And when she decides that she wants to do something, she's going to work to make it happen. And I just find that characteristic really attractive. She's really kind and really thoughtful about people all over, her family and friends for sure, but also a really big open heart for people everywhere. And I just really, really do admire that.
Aw, that's so nice, Ryan. Okay. Well, what do I admire most about Ryan? This is a hard one for me because I can't just be like, everything. I admire everything about him. My 5-year-old answers questions like that. We're like, hey, what was your favorite thing about this movie? And he's like, everything. I don't know. Be specific. Be specific. So now I have to be specific. Ryan is also really open. When he says he's going to do something or that he believes something, he means it and he does it. He is really thoughtful. And I think he's very considerate of other people, and I think that is so important. I mean, we're all in this world together. We're in this life together. We're all connected, and I just think his kindness is an example for our kids, and the way he follows his passions and plays music and does the things he loves to do, that's also a great example for our kids. So I'm somewhere between saying, like, the thing I admire most is probably his thoughtfulness, but also he's just a great dad. And I think the example that he sets for the kids is really phenomenal. And I'm just so proud to have you in my life and the kids' lives. And yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And what has the experience blending our families been like?
Well, I would say it's been almost wholly positive.
Yeah.
We we made the decision to live together, and Brandi and her son moved in with me, and my 3 sons are here part-time. And
so there was definitely a transition for us all.
Sure.
My son and I went from being 2 to 6, so we both had to adjust. And then Ryan and his sons went from being 4 to 6, so that was an adjustment. The youngest was no longer the youngest.
Right. And the only was no longer the only.
Mm-hmm.
But, I have 2 that are teens, and then now we have 2 that are elementary school aged. And the 2 youngers get along well together. I think my youngest, my biological youngest, certainly feels like he's now got a little brother, and I think he enjoys that role. And having a playmate around is a big improvement, I think, for both of them. Although one of the things that our youngest has learned now is about video games and and how much fun it can be just to sit on the couch and play a game on the TV. So,
yeah, the olders definitely took him under their wing for video games, for sure.
Yeah, and generally, the older 2 definitely are good with kids, I would say, and they enjoy getting down on the floor and wrestling around and playing as well. Yeah, it's an evolving situation all the time.
Yep.
Just like it would be with, I think, any group of 6 people put together in one place. But so far, I think any of the negatives have been far outweighed by just the expansion of how much time we get to spend together, and how much love we're able to share because we're all here together. Yeah.
And so the kids, it's been pretty smooth with the kids. I feel like, my biological now interacts with the other 3, who I like to refer to as my bonus sons. And they, I feel like they have brotherly interactions, to sum it up. Yeah.
For sure.
When it comes to parenting, the transition was interesting because my biological son is now with us full time. As his father passed away in October of 2018. I was actually doing an interview for episode 7 of this podcast when I got the phone call. It was pretty crazy. And so Ryan has more of a role in my son's life now than I necessarily have in the other kids' lives. And I do have a role in the other kids' lives, and it's been interesting, but they're not here full time. So the evolution of those relationships is slower than the evolution of, say, Ryan's relationship with my biological son. But I still feel like it's going smoothly. All the kids are really good natured, and we talk about things that we're interested in. I think we find the things that we like and we ask each other questions, and I think it's a natural evolution as well, just like it was with me and Ryan to begin with.
Totally agree.
The only other thing that we have to address is Trey Cockcroft of episode 26, I believe. I'll definitely post that in the show notes. But he said, resisting the urge to only post questions about his gorgeous beard. So, Ryan, what do you do to have such a gorgeous beard? Because Ryan is hot, by the way. And yeah, so.
Oh, boy. Well, I don't know. It's a lot of maintenance. It's like having a little shrubbery you carry around with you all the time.
You have a shrub.
When you first decide you're going to grow a beard, like the first 2 weeks, you think you're doing it because you're being lazy and you don't want to, I'm not shaving anymore. I'm just going to have a beard. And then you realize you don't want to look like a 1840s prospector. And so you have to maintain it. So, yeah.
You'd still be hot if you looked like an 1840s prospector. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, lots of trimming, lots of combing.
And the beard oil has to smell good, y'all.
Yeah, true.
Make sure it smells good if you're going to use it.
That's for sure.
All right. Well, Ryan, thanks for coming on the podcast and for helping out.
Oh, sure. No, it's been a real pleasure to get to participate in all of it so far. I really believe in what you're trying to do and the things you like to talk about. And I think it's really important. And I'm glad to be involved.
I love you.
I love you too.
You guys, oh my gosh, this episode was so fun. Isn't Ryan just so awesome? For all the cool stuff we mentioned, go to onbeinghuman.podcast.com/episodes/033. Remember, this is the second to last episode of Season 1. Be sure to tune in next week for the season finale, where we'll hear extremely personal, unfiltered stories from 3 veterans right before Independence Day. These stories will really touch your heart and get the emotions going. Be sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts so others like yourselves can find the show, and so we can continue to grow and serve you with valuable content and new heart-based offerings in the future. Plus, I would love to highlight your review on a podcast episode so you get a shout out for listening. Sign up to join in this conversation with me at onbeinghumanpodcast.com. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Tune in weekly at onbeinghumanpodcast.com for more soul-exposing explorations of what it means to be human. Until next week, love to you all.